Get out of here right now! You are disrupting the peace, and I am ordering you to leave the premises immediately!
I said get out! This is your final warning. Move towards the exit now, or face arrest.
Blue and red lights shattered the night across the marble steps of the Capitol Annex. Rain smeared the colors into bleeding streak, flashing over the face of Senator Amara Lewis, soaked, breath-sharp, one hand still clutching her Senate ID. The officer's flashlight hit her eyes like an interrogation lamp. "Step back, ma'am," he barked, voice practiced, cold. His partner lingered near the cruiser, radio murmuring static. Amara raised her badge. "I'm on the Oversight Committee. I belong in that chamber." He didn't look at the ID, he looked at her skin. "Don't care who you say you are," he said. "You people always got stories." The phrase sliced her open. For a second, all she heard was the hum of the rain on her coat, the hollow beat of her pulse. Around them, aides and interns froze, phones half-raised, unsure whether to record or survive. Amara lowered her voice, the way her grandmother once did when police stopped her outside a grocery store in 1968. "Officer, this is a federal building. You're obstructing." He moved closer. "You're obstructing me." His hand reached for his cuffs. Metal clicked. Cameras finally lifted. Someone shouted, "That's Senator Lewis," but it didn't matter. The officer's grip stayed iron. The wet pavement caught her reflection, powerful, restrained, humiliated, all in one frame. And as the Capitol dome flickered above them, Amara realized the truth, blooming like acid behind her ribs. Power meant nothing if the uniform in front of you decided it didn't. The cuffs locked with a final, echoing snap, then silence, only the sound of a camera shutter breaking it. Rain made the city hum, a low, electric noise that sank into the concrete and the nerves of everyone crossing Constitution Avenue. Senator Amara Lewis walked quickly beneath her umbrella, aides hurrying to keep pace. The meeting had run late, and the Capitol lights were already dimmed for the night. Session. She was 3 steps from the annex gate when a voice snapped through the rain, "Stop right there." A uniformed officer stepped from the shadow of a patrol car, flashlight up. The beam hit her square in the chest, scattering over the seal pinned to her coat. "Evening," she said evenly. "I'm Senator Lewis's committee business." He didn't lower the light. ID. She held out her Senate badge, the laminated surface slick with rain. "Right here." He didn't take it. His eyes moved past it, up to her face, down again, then back. "Need to see some real identification." "That is real identification," she replied, tone measured, "issued by the United States Senate." He exhaled through his nose, slow, performative. "You think I don't know fake credentials when I see them?" Her aide, Marcus, stepped forward. "Officer, we're literally walking from the chamber." "She just quiet," the officer said sharply. "Didn't ask you." Rain pattered between them, heavy enough to sound like static. Amara's pulse thudded against her collarbone. She'd handled foreign delegations, billion-dollar hearings, but this banal hostility carried a different weight. "Sir," she began, "you're interfering with a sitting senator on federal grounds. Please step aside." His jaw set. "You're interfering with an officer." He moved closer. She could smell wet leather and cheap coffee. Marcus whispered, "Just show him the ID again." She did. The officer snatched it, glanced, then smirked. "Doesn't look like you." "It was taken 4 years ago," she said quietly. "Funny, still doesn't look right." Her other aides started recording. The red light blinked in the corner of her eye. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to need you to place your hands behind your back." "For what?" Non-compliance. A pause stretched long, wet, unbearable. Somewhere across the street, a siren echoed. "Officer," she said, voice tightening, "this is unlawful." "Then you can tell it to the judge." He reached for her arm. Instinct flared. She stepped back. The motion, tiny as it was, snapped something invisible. His hand gripped her wrist, cold and absolute. Marcus shouted, "That's a United States Senator." Cameras flashed. The officer didn't turn. "Everyone thinks they're somebody," he muttered. The cuffs clinked. Steel on skin. Her ID lay face down on the pavement. Rain pooling around the word Senate. Inside the cruiser, the city lights blurred into streaks. Amara sat still, hands locked behind her, breath steady but shallow. Her reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, powerful, furious, reduced. Marcus ran alongside the car, phone in hand, shouting her name. Reporters were already gathering, drawn by the blue-red pulse of lights. Through the glass, she watched a Capitol police officer, not this one, pick up her badge from the ground, hesitate, then pocket it quietly. That, more than the arrest, made her stomach turn. She looked at her own blurred face and thought, they won't let me speak. Even now. And as the cruiser turned the corner, siren cutting into the wet night, Amara Lewis, United States Senator, closed her eyes and let silence become her only defense. Morning came with headlines, not statements. Headlines. Capitol incident raises questions about security protocols. Unidentified woman resists officer near Senate entrance. Source: she got confrontational. Senator Amara Lewis watched from her kitchen table, the television's cold light flickering against her untouched coffee. Every outlet ran a different clip, edited, looped, dissected, all missing the moment she identified herself. The cuffs, though, always stayed. That image sold. Her communications director, Jonah Reyes, stood by the counter, phone vibrating endlessly. They're framing it as a security misunderstanding, he said. We need to respond, but leadership wants you quiet for now. Amara didn't look up. Quiet, the word left her lips like ash. They'd rather let the footage talk for me. Ma'am, Senator, say it, she said. They'd rather avoid alienating donors with badges. Jonah hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Across the table, her husband, Malcolm, scrolled his tablet, jaw tightening. The officer's name is out. Randall Knox, 12 years on the force. Administrative leave, paid, she asked. Jonah's silence answered. The television showed a panel of commentators debating her tone, her expression, her response to authority. None of them mentioned that she'd been elected twice by over 3 million voters. They're calling you combative, Jonah said, reading a tweet. Another says, you were playing the race card. Amara turned the TV off. They're rehearsing the script. What script? Malcolm asked. The one written for people like me who forget their place. The room went quiet. Rain still pressed against the windows, same as the night before. Jonah cleared his throat. There's pressure from leadership. They think a personal statement will inflame it. They want to issue a joint message about unity instead. She looked at him, tired, measured. Whose unity? He didn't answer. Her phone rang again. The Senate Majority Whip's assistant. She let it buzz out. Then it buzzed again. Jonah mouthed, you should take it. She picked up. This is Senator Lewis. Amara, it's Glenn, came the syrup-smooth voice. Listen, the footage is complicated. We all know how optics can spiral. We're working on a way to contain it. Contain it, she said. You mean me? Don't misunderstand, Glenn continued. We just need to avoid polarization. These things get emotional. Her voice dropped. A federal officer handcuffed a sitting senator after she showed credentials. That's not emotional. That's unlawful. Then, we're all on the same team here. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Too late, she said, and ended the call. Jonah exhaled slowly. They'll freeze you out for that. They already have. Malcolm stood, pacing. You can't let them control the story. You need to speak before they bury you under theirs. I speak. They call me divisive. I stay silent. They call me guilty. Either way, I'm noise. He turned sharply. Then be thunder. Her eyes flicked up steady. And who hears thunder inside soundproof rooms? He didn't answer. Jonah's phone pinged again. A news alert. Local station just aired an exclusive interview with Knox's union rep. He read aloud. Sergeant Knox followed standard protocol when a woman refused to comply with lawful orders. Racial motivation is an unfair accusation against an officer doing his job. Amara's hand curled into a fist. Standard protocol. Refusing to let a citizen speak. They're framing him as the victim, Jonah said. They always do, Malcolm muttered. Amara stood, walked to the window. The Capitol dome glowed faintly through the drizzle. Stately, indifferent. Her own reflection hung against it like a ghost. A woman who'd built power, only to be told she had none. Jonah lowered his voice. We could leak your side anonymously. Force the footage to be seen in full. No, she said. They'll trace it. Call it opportunistic. So we just wait. For now. Malcolm stepped closer. Waiting lets them rewrite it. I know. Her voice cracked, barely. But if I strike too soon, they'll call it anger. If I wait too long, they'll call it acceptance. Jonah's phone rang again, a reporter from the Post. He ignored it. Senator, he said finally, the story's moving without you. I know, she whispered. That's what they want. For a moment, no one spoke. The rain softened. On the muted TV, new footage appeared, an edited loop of her being cuffed, slowed for effect. The anchor's voice crawled across the captions, developing, Questions surround conduct of black senator during security stop. Jonah muttered. They just rewrote history in real time. Amara turned back to them. Then we'll have to make memory louder. How? Her eyes were cold, deliberate. By surviving long enough to tell it, Malcolm met her gaze, something fierce sparking beneath the exhaustion. Then we start now. She looked out again, the Capitol dome framed in the rain, and spoke. Not to them but to herself. They think silence will save them. It won't. The room fell quiet. Phones buzzed. Notifications multiplied. Somewhere, an anchor's voice rose over another half-truth outside. Sirens wailed down Constitution Avenue, echoing the night before. Same tone, same city, same machinery. And Amara Lewis, still in her robe, hands trembling but steady, picked up her phone at last. She pressed record. No staff, no filters, no permission. Good morning, she said. Her voice, low but unshaken, filled the room. Let me tell you what really happened. The red light blinked. The storm outside resumed. The spin had started, but so had her answer. The video went live before dawn. 3 minutes, no script, no production, just Amara Lewis sitting at her kitchen table beneath flat white light. Eyes direct, voice unwavering. I was detained outside the United States Capitol last night, she began. I identified myself. I showed credentials. I was handcuffed anyway. She didn't raise her voice, didn't curse. She told the facts, nothing more. But truth, clean and unvarnished, cut sharper than outrage ever could. By sunrise, 20 million views. By 8 a.m., a counter-campaign, hashtags calling her ungrateful, divisive, dangerous, anonymous accounts, spread rumors. A headline read, Senator Lewis Stokes, tensions with police criticism. At 9, the phone rang, unlisted number, White House Exchange. Senator Lewis. A voice said smoothly, this is Director Halverson from Federal Liaison. She didn't answer right away. Go ahead. I'm calling to urge calm, he said. The president values your service, but this situation has become volatile. We're concerned about national cohesion. National cohesion, she repeated, quiet but firm. You mean embarrassment? He chuckled softly, as if humoring a child. You're under a microscope. This could spiral into unrest. Sometimes the responsible thing is to let due process work. Due process didn't work when I was handcuffed on federal grounds. Senator, let's not dramatize. An officer ignored federal detained a sitting senator, and mocked her name. That's not drama. That's reality. A pause. The tone shifted. Let me be clear, Halverson said. The administration cannot afford a partisan race narrative right now. We need stability. If you insist on pursuing this, we'll have to reassess your committee assignments. That sounds like a threat. Call it strategic guidance. She didn't hang up. She wanted him to hear the silence. A silence that carried weight, calculation, fury. When she finally spoke, her words came slow. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, not your polling data. Then defend it quietly, he said, and the line clicked dead. The room felt smaller afterward. Malcolm entered, reading her expression. Who was that? Someone who believes stability is worth my silence? He frowned. They're trying to box you in. They already did, she said, rubbing her wrist where the cuff had bruised. Now they're tightening the lid. He reached for her hand. You could step back for a few weeks. Let this settle. She stared at him, the man who had walked door to door during her first campaign, rain in his hair, conviction in every stride. Step back, she said quietly. If I step back now, I'm stepping back for every woman who looks like me that they stop next. He sighed, pacing. I'm saying survive it, Amara. They're coming hard. They'll dig, leak, twist. I've seen what they do when power feels threatened. She stood. Power doesn't feel threatened. Fragility does. He stopped moving, watching her. You're angry. Yes, she said. And I'm tired of pretending not to be. The words hung heavy between them. Jonah entered mid-argument, tablet in hand, voice tight. Senator, the networks are calling for a statement about the liaison's warning. She frowned. How did they leak? He said simply. Someone from their side wants to make you look combative. Good, she said. Then they'll have to explain why. Careful, Jonah warned. They're baiting you into looking emotional. Emotional, she repeated. You mean human? Jonah hesitated, eyes weary. You know how they spin it. She turned toward him, sharp. Then let them see what control looks like when it bleeds. Jonah said nothing more. The television behind them played muted coverage, a commentator asking if she overreacted, another suggesting she misunderstood standard security measures. Malcolm's voice softened. You don't have to fight every battle. Amara faced him. When you're born into one, you don't get to choose. He closed his eyes briefly. I just don't want them to break you. They already tried, she said, and I'm still standing. The line between strength and exhaustion blurred in her tone. Jonah cleared his throat. There's talk of a formal hearing. Ethics committee wants to review the incident. It's performative, but it's happening. Let them, she said. I'll testify. They won't let you speak freely. Then they'll hear what silence sounds like when it stares back. He nodded slowly. Understood. The day stretched long. Calls, headlines, false statements. By evening, the air itself felt weighted with scrutiny. Outside, the Capitol lights glowed steady, indifferent. Amara sat alone in her office as the clock ticked past midnight. A folder lay open before her. Copies of the police report. The section labeled Behavior of Subject read, Non-compliant, argumentative, refused orders. She laughed once, bitter and low. Argumentative, she murmured. Translation, refused to be humiliated quietly. The office door creaked. Malcolm stepped in, jacket over his shoulder. Come home, in a minute, she said. He hesitated at the doorway. You can't win this in one night. No, she said, but I can decide how they lose. He studied her, then left without another word. When the door shut, she turned back to the report, pen poised. On the margin beside Nung, she wrote 2 words in ink, dark as blood, not anymore. Then she closed the file, locked it away, and stared out at the Capitol monument of ideals built on selective hearing. Somewhere deep in the marble silence, she thought she could almost hear it whisper back. Be quiet. Her answer came without sound, a look, a thought, a refusal. Tomorrow, she would speak again, and this time, they'd have to listen. The hearing chamber smelled faintly of varnish and old power. Rows of cameras blinked along the back wall, their lenses aimed at Senator Amara Lewis as she took her seat. The placard before her read Subject of Review. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Reporters whispered. Aides exchanged glances. The ethics committee members, 5 men, 2 women, shuffled papers with deliberate calm, each pretending this wasn't theater. Senator Whitfield, the chair, adjusted his microphone. This proceeding concerns the events of Tuesday evening, in which an interaction between law enforcement and Senator Lewis escalated into an unfortunate misunderstanding. Unfortunate, Amara almost smiled. Whitfield continued, Our purpose today is to clarify conduct, review procedural concerns, and ensure confidence in our institutions. Amara leaned forward. You mean to ensure I don't damage them? A low murmur rippled through the room. Whitfield gave a rehearsed chuckle. We're simply seeking truth. Truth doesn't need permission, she said. His smile thinned. Senator, we'll come to your statement shortly. Across from her, a monitor displayed a paused still frame, the night of the arrest. Her hands cuffed. The rain, the lights, the glint of disbelief frozen mid-air. Whitfield cleared his throat. We've reviewed partial footage from several devices, including police body. Unfortunately, key recordings are unavailable due to a technical malfunction. Amara's jaw tightened. Technical malfunction, she repeated. That phrase has covered more scenes in this city than confession ever did. Let's remain civil, he said. She glanced around the dais. Civility is what people in power demand when the truth makes them uncomfortable. Gasps from the press row. Flashbulbs popped. Whitfield straightened. Senator Lewis, please describe your behavior during the encounter. She folded her hands on the table. I identified myself. I provided credentials. I was told they didn't look right. Then I was handcuffed. Did you comply with instructions? I complied with the law, she said evenly. He did not. Another murmur. A committee member, Senator Blake, interjected, older, white-haired, voice paternal. I understand your frustration, but the officer may have been responding to a perceived threat. Nighttime, heightened security, was the threat my existence? She asked. My tone, my skin. Let's not inject race into this prematurely, Blake said quickly. Amara turned her head toward him. Race was injected the moment I was presumed a suspect instead of a senator. Silence. Cameras whirred. Whitfield leaned forward, steepling his fingers. Senator, your words carry weight. Please consider how your characterization might divide the public. She met his gaze, calm and cold. Division existed long before my words gave it sound. A female senator down the line, Barnes, cleared her throat. With respect, Senator Lewis, what outcome are you hoping for here? Amara's answer came steady. Acknowledgement, accountability, reform, the usual things no one actually wants to say aloud. Perhaps, Barnes said carefully, but sometimes public anger does more harm than progress. Then maybe progress shouldn't depend on comfort. The stenographer's keys clacked rapidly, recording every word. Whitfield adjusted his tie. Let's move to Exhibit 6, a statement from Officer Knox's attorney. The monitor flickered, showing a pre-recorded video. A man in a crisp suit appeared. My client deeply regrets that Senator Lewis felt disrespected, the attorney said. However, protocol was followed. Senator Lewis's demeanor was confrontational and uncooperative. The officer feared for his safety. The playback ended. Whitfield looked to her. Your response? Amara inhaled once. Fear doesn't justify prejudice. It reveals it. Her words landed sharp, final. A murmur spread, reporters scribbling, phones lighting. Whitfield rapped the gavel. Order. From the corner, Jonah watched, pale but proud. Malcolm sat behind him, unmoving, a pillar of quiet fury. Whitfield tried again, voice cooling. Senator Lewis, these proceedings aren't about guilt or innocence. Then, what are they about? She asked. Optics, damage control. They're about preserving institutional integrity. She leaned forward. Integrity would require confronting why an officer thought a black woman holding a Senate ID was lying. A long silence. Someone coughed. Blake spoke again. Senator, are you implying systemic bias within Capitol security? She turned to him slowly. I'm stating it plainly. You have evidence. She pointed at the screen. You're looking at it. Flashbulbs again. A photographer's lens caught the moment, her gaze sharp, his expression defensive. It would run on front pages by nightfall. Whitfield sighed. Let's conclude this segment. Senator Lewis, you may make a closing statement. She stood. The room stilled. Her reflection shimmered faintly on the polished table, controlled, deliberate, unbroken. When I was elected, she began, I believed service meant working within the system to make it better. But last week, that system reminded me, it still decides who counts as part of it. She scanned the committee faces blank, cautious, calculating. When I was cuffed, the officer didn't see a senator. He saw a problem to control. And when you ask me to soften that truth, you're asking me to lie so the system feels safe from what it built. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I don't need your permission to exist within my own government. Whitfield's gavel hit wood. Senator, she kept talking. If that makes this institution uncomfortable, good. Maybe discomfort is the first step toward integrity. He struck the gavel again. You're out of order. She smiled faintly. No, I'm finally in order. The cameras caught it all. The restrained defiance, the gavel, the flash, the pause before she gathered her notes and walked out. Jonah followed, whispering urgently, they'll spin this, say you disrespected the process. They should, she said, not slowing. The process deserves disrespect when it forgets justice. Malcolm caught up as they reached the corridor. That was broadcast live. I know. They're going to come after you harder. I know that too. He looked at her weary, proud. So what now? She didn't answer. Down the hall, the Capitol dome's windows glowed against the rain. Somewhere beneath the noise, she felt something shift. Not victory, but exposure. A crack in the arm, a dot. As they exited into the gray daylight, Jonah's phone buzzed. He read the message aloud. Breaking body cam footage missing. Officials cite server corruption. Amara stopped walking. Of course. She looked at the dome, marble against storm, and said quietly, then they've chosen how this story ends. Malcolm asked, and us? She turned, expression unreadable. We rewrite the ending. Then she walked into the rain, the camera still rolling, her reflection fractured in every drop. The committee adjourned, but the noise only grew louder. Clips of Amara's testimony looped endlessly on news cycles, her sharp retort, the gavel's echo, Whitfield's frown. Each network assigned its own narrative, defiant, heroic, unhinged, unapologetic. None of them said truthful. By evening, Amara's office resembled a command center. Phones rang, screens scrolled headlines. Jonah paced, sleeves rolled up. Every outlet wants an exclusive. They'll twist it, but the exposure's momentum. Amara sat at her desk, posture rigid, exhaustion carved under her eyes. Exposure without control is just spectacle. Malcolm leaned in the doorway. Then take control. Speak again. This time, on your terms. She met his gaze. They'll say I'm grandstanding. They already did. Jonah interjected, cautious. If we draft a statement? No. She stood, decisive. Not a statement. A speech. He blinked live. Yes. No cuts. no edits. If they're going to dissect every word, let them work for it. Jonah hesitated. Networks might refuse to carry it. Then we stream it. They don't own air. Malcolm nodded slowly, watching her reclaim something the hearings tried to strip away. What will you say? Amara looked out the window, toward the Capitol dome, lit like a false moon. Everything they told me not to. The next night, the rotunda filled with cables, cameras, murmuring staffers. A lectern stood before a backdrop of flags, the same kind that flanked countless hollow apologies. This time, the apology would not come. Jonah approached with a clipboard. You sure about this? Once it's out, there's no pulling it back. She took the microphone card from him. That's the point. He stepped aside. Malcolm squeezed her shoulder once. When the red light came on, Amara inhaled, shallow, then steady. The room hushed. Good evening, she began. 2 weeks ago, I was handcuffed outside the building where I've sworn to serve this country. Since then, the conversation has been about tone, protocol, optics, everything except what actually happened. She paused. It happened because an officer saw me and decided I didn't belong, because my credentials mattered less than his certainty, because even inside the walls of government, there are doors that only open one way. Cameras clicked softly. I've been told to calm down, to protect unity, to avoid making people uncomfortable. But comfort is not justice. Silence is not peace. And unity without equality is not unity, it's submission. She looked directly into the lens. They say I'm angry. I am. They say I'm emotional. I am. They say I'm dangerous. Only to the lie that power is colorblind. The silence after that sentence was alive, humming, electric. She lowered her tone. I don't hate law enforcement. I hate impunity. I don't hate this nation. I hate the parts of it that punish those who dare to expose its contradictions. Jonah, offstage, mouthed enough. She ignored him. When a black senator has to prove she belongs, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a mirror. And if you don't like what you see, don't break the mirror. Change the reflection. Her words hung in the air like thunder held back. She closed simply. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you listen. The feed cut. For 5 seconds. Silence. Then social media erupted. Hashtag Listen to Amara trended within minutes. Protesters filled downtown streets by dawn, not just in D.C., but in Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles. Some held candles, others held signs with her, quote, "Comfort is not justice." Inside the Capitol. The response was immediate and split. Half the chamber condemned her for inciting division. The other half called her the conscience of the Senate. The president's press secretary issued a statement praising her courage while denouncing the rhetoric of confrontation. In her office, Amara sat, surrounded by screens flashing her own face, each network slicing the same speech into opposing narratives. Jonah dropped a stack of papers on her desk. They're calling for disciplinary review. Of course they are. Malcolm entered, coat damp from the rain. Protests outside the Capitol are peaceful so far. People are chanting your name. She rubbed her temples. I didn't want to chant. I wanted a reckoning. He sat across from her. Reckonings don't start quiet, Jonah added. The union rep just called your speech a declaration of war. She almost smiled. Then, I suppose we're finally speaking the same language. Jonah hesitated. There's one more thing. The officer Noxie's filing a defamation claim. She exhaled sharply. He'll regret that. Maybe, Jonah said, but it'll keep you in the spotlight longer. Amara turned away. That's not the worst thing to be in. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Another headline. She ignored them all. Her eyes lingered instead on the television muted in the corner. A clip of the protests. A young girl stood at the front, holding a cardboard sign that read, "She belongs." Amara stared at it for a long time. She shouldn't have to prove that, she murmured. Malcolm leaned forward. Then make sure she never does. She looked up, resolve hardening again. Then we keep going. He nodded. Until when? Until silence feels strange to them. Outside, chants swelled through the marble walls. Faint, rhythmic, unstoppable. Inside, Amara sat motionless, listening. Each echo was both wound and weapon. She wasn't sure which one she needed more. By dawn, the backlash was organized. Networks that had broadcast Amara's speech now dissected it in panels stacked with former aides and security analysts. They parsed her tone like evidence. Too sharp, too soft, too rehearsed, too raw. Words like rage, agenda, and divisive rhetoric filled the air like a smog that refused to clear. Jonah burst into her office mid-morning, pale and sweating. They hit back, hard. She didn't look up from the folder she was reading. Define they. He dropped his tablet on the table. Headlines rolled like blows. Donor links to radical activist groups found in Lewis's campaign records. Exclusive. Senator's husband once represented protesters charged in 2017 demonstration. Anonymous sources question Lewis's temperament. They've gone for your credibility, Jonah said. And they're not done. Malcolm entered, face tight. They pulled my name into this now. Old clients. Quotes out of context. They're framing me as your radical influence. Amara's voice was low. Expected. They always turn the woman's passion into a man's manipulation. Jonah scrolled rapidly. There's more. They leaked your donor list, completely legal, but selective edits make it look shady. Someone's orchestrating this. Halvorsen, she said. Jonah looked up. You think the liaison. I know it, she said. This is how the machine corrects itself. It can't discipline me in the open, so it destroys me by whisper. Malcolm slammed a fist on the table, then shout louder. She turned to him sharply. You think they'll let me shout forever? There's a point where they stop hearing and start punishing. He met her eyes. So you let them define the limits. No, she said, voice breaking for the first time. I survive inside them until I can move the walls. The room went still. Jonah lowered his gaze. There's a rumor, a formal inquiry into your finances is next. Manufactured, but still enough to stain you. Let it come, she said. Sunlight burns lies faster than darkness hides them. Jonah hesitated. There's something else you should see. He swiped to a new video. Independent journalists found something buried in old records about Officer Knox. On screen, a reporter stood outside a courthouse, speaking over blurred documents. Internal complaints filed against Sergeant Randall Knox over a 10-year span, use of force, racial profiling, verbal misconduct, all closed without investigation. Malcolm leaned forward. How many? 8, Jonah said, all buried by his superiors. Get the files verified, Amara said. They're incomplete, Jonah warned. The originals were sealed under personnel protection. But if we corroborate even one, it's enough to show pattern. She finished. Jonah nodded. It'll look like retaliation if it comes from us. Then it won't, she said. Find a journalist who still remembers what integrity feels like. That night, Amara returned home late. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Malcolm sat on the couch, a drink untouched before him. He looked up. You haven't eaten. Neither have you. They stared at each other for a long time. The day's noise, the headlines, the spin, the lies, all hung invisible between them. He spoke first. You're becoming a symbol. That's dangerous. I didn't ask to be one. But now you are. And symbols don't get to rest. She sat beside him, rubbing the bruised mark still faint on her wrist. I thought truth would be armor. Turns out it's just glass. He looked at her hand, then away. You knew they'd come for you. I thought I was ready. Are you? Her silence was the answer. He leaned forward. You can still protect yourself. Step back, call for an independent review, then go quiet. I go quiet, she said, and every woman who believed my words learns what silence buys. He exhaled, helpless. Then tell me how you survived this, Amara, because I'm watching them dismantle you, piece by piece. She looked at him, eyes glinting with something halfway between fury and grief, by refusing to disappear. The clock ticked. The air felt heavier with each sound. Finally, she whispered, do you ever get tired of being right about what they'll do to us? All the time, he said. She stood, restless. Then let's make them tired of being comfortable. He reached for her hand, but she was already walking toward her study dot in her office, dimly lit. She opened a laptop. The screen glowed over stacks of notes, legal citations, transcripts, complaint logs. A journalist's name glimmered in her inbox. Kara Lynn, Washington Ledger. The subject line read, I have the files, but you need to know what's in them before you decide to use them. Amara clicked. The attachments loaded reports, time-stamped memos, complaint summaries. Every one bore Knox's name. A note followed, buried by internal affairs, suppressed at request of senior Capitol Police leadership. You'll want to sit down before reading paragraph 6. She read it, stopped, read it again. Complaint, #0047, filed by a civilian aide, 3 years earlier. Sergeant Knox detained subject outside Capitol after confusing her for a domestic worker. The subject was later confirmed to be legislative staff for Senator Lewis. Her name again. He'd done it before to someone connected to her office, and they'd buried it. The realization hollowed her out. This wasn't an isolated act. It was pattern, protected by silence, dressed as procedural. She leaned back, eyes closed. The hum of the computer filled the room like static. From the doorway, Malcolm's voice broke through. What is it? She didn't look up. Proof of what? That this isn't about me. He stepped closer. Then who? She opened her eyes, voice flat. Everyone who's ever been told they imagined it. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Low, distant, inevitable. Amara stared at the screen's light, reflecting off her face. They had struck first. Now, it was her turn. Morning arrived, gray and heavy. The city seemed to hold its breath, between storm and sunlight, between denial and revelation. Amara sat at her kitchen table, laptop open, the files spread like shards of evidence. Each report carried the same bureaucratic stamp, each complaint the same pattern of dismissal. She traced the signatures at the bottom: supervisors, legal counsel, internal review boards, all complicit through ink and indifference. Malcolm entered quietly, tie loose, eyes sharp. You didn't sleep, couldn't? He poured coffee into her untouched cup. You're thinking of releasing them. I'm thinking of justice. He studied her. Same thing. If the world were fair. She looked up. It's not. Jonah arrived moments later, phone buzzing, hair disheveled. We verified everything. Cross-checked, timestamps, email trails, whistleblower logs. It's real. How solid? Amara asked. Solid enough to bury a career. Maybe two. Malcolm leaned against the counter. Then we don't leak, we detonate. Jonah hesitated. You realize this makes it look personal. It is personal, Amara said. That's what makes it systemic. He rubbed his forehead. You're a sitting senator, accusing a federal officer and his chain of command. They'll say you're politicizing tragedy. They already have, Malcolm interjected. You want it to matter? Go live again. One broadcast. Straight truth. Documents visible. No spin. Jonah groaned. That's suicide. They'll smear it as revenge. Amara's tone cut through him. Then let them explain why revenge looks exactly like record-keeping. That night, she stood once more under the same lights, the same marble dome. But something had changed. The cameras were hers this time. Independent press, live stream feeds, handheld phones in the hands of citizens. Her staff tried to dissuade her. She dismissed them all. Jonah remained, grim but loyal, beside the teleprompter. Ready? He asked. No script, she said. Then improvise carefully. She walked to the lectern. No audience, only silence, the kind that feels like judgment. The red light blinked on. This is not a statement, she began. It's evidence. She held up a single sheet, an official memo. Knox's name visible. These documents were buried by the same department that claims accountability. They show years of racial profiling, complaints dismissed, records sealed. She set it down deliberately. The man who arrested me outside the Capitol did so with the confidence of someone who had never been punished for doing it before. A pause. Because he hadn't. The room felt tighter. I'm not here to destroy him. I'm here to reveal the rot that protects him. Cameras zoomed in. Each flash reflected off her eyes like a flare in the dark. For every report ignored, someone learned silence. For every complaint buried, someone learned despair. This isn't about one officer. It's about every gate built to look like a door. Jonah motioned from behind the camera. Wrap it. She ignored him. Here's what I know. Power defends itself with paperwork, and if justice hides behind procedure, then sunlight is the only weapon left. She lifted the stack of files and let them fall across the podium. The papers scattered like feathers, like confessions. I'm not asking for outrage. I'm asking for memory. The live stream cut out not from her end, but there's systems jammed. Mid-broadcast feeds went black. Comments froze. Jonah cursed. They pulled the transmission. Back up, she said calmly. We recorded everything offline. Within an hour, clips resurfaced across social networks. People shared them faster than they could be deleted. Hashtag the files trended worldwide. Each image, her face, the papers, the trembling mic, became a symbol larger than its context. By dawn, the Capitol Police issued a press release. Sergeant Knox placed on administrative leave pending review. The union called it politically motivated persecution. Other agencies distanced themselves. Knox himself spoke briefly to a local station. This is a witch hunt, he said. I followed procedure. Amara watched the clip silently. His eyes were defiant, but something behind them, fatigue or fear, flickered. Malcolm entered. They're unraveling. Not yet, she said. They'll circle wagons first. He leaned against the doorway. You think you won? No, she said. I think I finally stopped losing quietly. That afternoon, a Senate Ethics Subcommittee convened an emergency session. Cameras lined the corridor. Jonah tried to hand her talking points. She pushed them away. I don't need language management, she said. Just remember, he whispered, every word will be used for or against you. That's how truth works. Inside, senators sat in 2 neat rows. Whitfield presided again, pale and unsmiling. He cleared his throat. Senator Lewis, the committee recognizes the seriousness of your claims, but also the procedural violations in your public disclosures. Amara met his gaze. You mean the truth? He stiffened. You circumvented official review channels. That's not acceptable. What's not acceptable, she said, is those channels existing only to bury what they claim to review. He leaned forward. You've compromised investigations. She smiled faintly. No, I've forced them to begin. A murmur rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. Whitfield's voice sharpened. Do you understand the magnitude of your actions? Yes, she said. Do you? Silence. For a moment he couldn't meet her eyes. That night, as Amara left the chamber, a group of staffers stood waiting outside. Young, diverse, uncertain. One woman stepped forward, nervous. Senator, she said softly, I worked under internal affairs. I saw those reports disappear. Thank you for bringing them back. Amara nodded once, unable to speak. Behind her, thunder rolled again, closer this time. The air smelled of wet stone and iron. Malcolm appeared beside her, coat over his arm. You realize this doesn't end here. It never does. He looked at her profile, illuminated by Then, what's next? She glanced up at the storm breaking over the Capitol dome, the part where they try to rewrite what happened. And what do we do? Keep telling it until they can't. Later, alone, she returned to her office. The papers still lay scattered across the floor like ghosts unwilling to be filed away again. She picked one up. The ink had bled slightly under her fingertips. Her reflection in the dark window looked older, wearier, but unbroken. Outside, sirens echoed faintly the city's lullaby of resistance. Amara whispered, sunlight burns lies faster than darkness hides them. And somewhere, far from the cameras, a system trembled. The storm that night tore through D.C. like a cleansing fire, sheets of rain on marble, thunder cracking over monuments built on contradictions. By morning, the air smelled of iron and aftermath. Amara woke to a phone vibrating on her nightstand. Jonah's voice came through, rough, urgent. It's breaking. Turn on Channel 7. She did. Knox appeared on screen, seated beside a union lawyer. His voice trembled beneath practiced composure. The senator's claims are false. I acted under orders. The department is reviewing my suspension. Then the reporter cut in, voice bright with revelation. New evidence contradicts that statement. Anonymous sources inside Capitol Police confirm prior misconduct allegations were indeed buried by command. Internal Affairs has opened an inquiry into supervisory practices. Malcolm entered from the hallway, still buttoning his shirt. It's happening, he said quietly. Amara muted the TV. No, it's beginning. By midday, the Capitol was chaos. Press clustered like crows around every marble step. Senators ducked into cars. Aides shouted into phones. Jonah met her in the corridor, holding a printed notice. Emergency hearing this afternoon. Public. She scanned it. They want to contain me on camera again. Then, let them try, he said. You've already changed the terrain. Malcolm joined them at the elevator. You go in there and they'll either crown you or crucify you. Amara adjusted her blazer. Either way, someone's building a monument. The elevator doors slid shut. The chamber was packed. Flashbulbs, whispers, heat. Whitfield presided again, though the authority in his posture had cracks now. Hairline fractures visible only to those who'd once feared him. He began, Senator Lewis, given recent disclosures, this committee convenes to address allegations of systemic negligence within Capitol Police oversight. You may make an opening statement. She rose slowly. The room quieted. When I was detained, she said, I thought the handcuffs were the insult. They weren't. The insult was the confidence with which they were applied, the quiet assurance that no one would ask why. She scanned the faces before her, some sympathetic, others calculating. This isn't about one officer's prejudice. It's about every unchecked assumption wearing a badge of authority. Whitfield interrupted. And yet, Senator, your methods, my methods, she cut in, were born of your inaction. Gasps fluttered across the chamber. I've been told I embarrass the institution, she continued. If truth embarrasses you, perhaps the shame isn't in its telling. Whitfield's face tightened. You're out of order. No, she said quietly. You are. Silence. The gavel trembled in his hand before it struck the wood. Recess. Outside the chamber, microphones surged forward. Senator Lewis, do you stand by your accusations? She faced them. Facts don't require permission. Are you calling for Whitfield's resignation? She didn't answer. Instead, she said, ask yourselves why you're still protecting the powerful, instead of the truth. That evening, the dominoes began to fall. An internal memo leaked. Whitfield had suppressed prior reviews of police misconduct to maintain public trust. The hypocrisy detonated across screens within hours. By midnight, his office lights were dark. Jonah sent a single text. He's stepping down. Amara sat alone in her office, staring at the message. Relief didn't come, only quiet, the kind that follows collapse. Malcolm entered. He's finished. You did it. She didn't look up. No, the system ate one of its own to look purified. It's adaptation, not justice. He sat opposite her. You sound disappointed. I am, she said, because I thought truth would feel cleaner. He studied her. What will you do now? Keep working. Even after everything. She smiled faintly. Especially after everything. Days passed. Hearings multiplied. Reforms were announced. Oversight boards, diversity audits, public statements about renewed commitments. Each phrase polished, hollow. Amara attended one ceremony, then stopped going. She preferred the quiet work, drafting legislation, meeting families of those silenced before her. The media called it her redemption arc. She called it survival. One evening, she returned to the plaza where she'd been arrested months earlier. The same lights, the same stone, but now a small plaque had been added near the entrance, dedicated to those who speak when silenced. A young black guard stood nearby, new badge gleaming. He nodded respectfully. Evening, Senator. Evening, she replied. She lingered, staring at the plaque. The memory came back. The cuffs, the asphalt, the officer's voice. Ma'am, I said. Step back. She heard it again, but it no longer held power, only echo. Malcolm's voice broke through the memory. You ready to go? She nodded. One last glance at the plaque. Almost. He followed her gaze. You think it changes anything? Not yet, she said. But it reminds them someone's watching. They walked away together, the Capitol dome behind them, gleaming white under a darkening sky. That night, Amara sat by her window, city lights pulsing like slow heartbeats. She wrote in a small notebook, not speeches, just thoughts. Justice isn't victory, it's vigilance. Power never apologizes, it adjusts. The truth survives only if someone keeps saying it. She closed the notebook. The storm outside had quieted, but thunder still lingered somewhere beyond the horizon, the sound of something unfinished. Amara leaned back, eyes open, unflinching. The world had changed, but only slightly, just enough to make denial harder. Not impossible. And for now, that was enough. Months passed. The scandal faded from the headlines, but the scar it left behind refused to close. The Capitol was quieter now, cautious, dressed in the language of reform. Senator Amara Lewis walked its corridors again, each step deliberate, each nod from colleagues a mixture of respect and unease. She had become both symbol and warning, proof that defiance could bloom inside the machine, but not without cost. Jonah followed beside her, tablet in hand. Your approval numbers are climbing again, he said softly. You're polling higher than before the hearing. I'm not running for applause, she replied. He smiled faintly. You could, though. You have the numbers. Amara stopped. The numbers didn't stop a man from thinking he could put me in handcuffs. Jonah lowered his eyes. You still think about it. Every time I walk through security. They reached her office door. A new guard stood there. Young, female, black. She saluted lightly. Senator Lewis. Amara nodded. Thank you. When she entered the office, sunlight cut across her desk in long gold lines. A single folder sat waiting, stamped confidential. She opened it. A letter from Internal Affairs. The final report on Sergeant Knox. Termination effective immediately. Pension revoked. Federal investigation pending. She read it twice, then closed the folder. Her expression didn't change. Malcolm entered a few moments later, coat still damp from the rain. You heard. She gestured toward the folder. It's done. He sat down across from her. Justice. She looked out the window. Closure. Not the same thing. He nodded slowly. He'll never work again. That matters. Maybe, she said. But I wonder how many more like him are still protected by paperwork. Malcolm leaned forward. Then you keep fighting, that's what you do. She didn't answer. The silence between them was comfortable, the kind shared by people who'd survived something permanent. Later that week, Amara stood on the steps of a community center in Anacostia. Cameras flashed, but this time they didn't dominate the space. The crowd was small, local activists, families, students. She spoke without notes. When I stood on these steps months ago, I was told I didn't belong. Now, I'm telling you, this place belongs to all of us. Power listens only when you make it hear you, and even then, it tries to forget. So don't let it. Applause rose, gentle but steady. A young man raised his hand. Senator, do you ever regret speaking out? She paused, considering. Every day, she said, and every day, I'd do it again. After the crowd dispersed, she lingered alone by the stage. Rain began to fall, light, rhythmic, cleansing. She tilted her face upward, letting it hit her skin. Malcolm appeared behind her with an umbrella. Still allergic to staying dry, he said. She smiled faintly, still allergic to staying silent. He laughed once, low. You know, you could stop now. No one would blame you. She looked at him. That's exactly why I can't. They walked toward the car, in silence. The city lights glowed through the rain like blurred halos. That night, Amara returned home to an empty house. She poured tea, sat by the window, and watched the reflection of her own face merge with the city outside, both tired, both still burning. She opened her notebook again. We win small. We lose loudly. We persist anyway. Truth costs more than lies because it lasts longer. She set the pen down and exhaled. On the table beside her sat the Senate pin, small, polished, heavy. She picked it up, turned it over once, then placed it in a drawer. The title wasn't what had saved her. Speaking had. The storm outside finally broke, thunder rolling distant. Soft, like applause for something unseen. Amara closed her eyes. The sound was not victory. It was continuation. Days later, news broke. A bipartisan committee had passed her police accountability bill, narrowly, quietly, but passed. Jonah called to tell her. It's law, he said, voice shaking. I know, she replied. You don't sound happy. I am, she said, just tired. Then rest, he said. You've earned it. She smiled to herself. No one earns rest. We steal it between battles. She hung up, then looked outside again, at the city she'd fought to make listen. It was still imperfect, still divided, still worth saving. She whispered, almost to herself, until silence feels strange to them. And for the first time in months, she allowed herself to sit in peace. Not because the war was over, but because she had finally learned how to breathe between the noise,